Friends, will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we're back in Egypt this week, following the plight of the Hebrew people as Moses implores Pharaoh to let my people go. The lectionary we follow jumps right from the burning bush last week to the instructions for Passover that we just heard this week, which means that we skipped over 9 of the 10 plagues that God wages on Egypt. That's a shame, really, because they're kind of a fun read. In 4 short chapters, God assails Egypt with plagues of frogs, flies, boils, blood water, locusts, dead livestock, thunder and hail, darkness, and gnats. But as the story goes, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and even after all this suffering comes to his people in Egypt, he will not let the Hebrew children go. Honestly, rattling off the list of plagues feels a little bit like reading a highlight reel from the year 2020. Deadly pandemic? Check. Wildfires? Worst yet. Simultaneous hurricanes? Why not? Surging unemployment? Police killing of unarmed Black citizens? Yes. Protests, loss of political decency, asteroids on track to hit the Earth, flying sharks with laser guns. Oh, sorry. Has that one not happened yet? Maybe it's on deck for October. The onslaught of plague upon plague this year has indeed been breathtaking. The Horn of Africa has been swarmed by an actual plague of locusts. And here in Taos, as many of you know, we have experienced our own version of the plague of gnats, with a batch of prolific and tenacious no-see-ums. Last week, my partner showed me a cartoon from the New Yorker. Perhaps you've seen it. One of the characters is lying on the couch, curled up under a blanket with her head on a pillow. And the other character is standing at the door with her hands on her hips, looking quite disgruntled. The caption reads, "No, it's my night to be despairing and hopeless. You get Thursdays." We laugh, but it's true, isn't it? Like the people of Egypt, we know what it feels like to be hit by plague after plague after plague after plague. We know what it feels like to be exhausted, to feel beleaguered, assailed on all sides by difficulties that keep piling on to the point where we shake our fists at the sky. What next, God? You want to try frogs again, maybe? I hear those boils were a real crowd pleaser the first go round. Our own recent experience with plagues of biblical proportions makes this morning's Old Testament reading particularly intriguing to me. God tells Moses, and Moses tells the Israelites, that God is sending the angel of death through Egypt. That night, every single firstborn son will die, human and animal, Israelite and Egyptian. We're all the same, it turns out, when death comes to our doorstep. But there is one way to escape this plague of death. Moses tells the Israelites to slaughter a lamb, and after cooking it, head, feet, internal organs, and all, as you heard Joan read, to smear some of its blood above the doorposts. When the angel of death sees this, he will pass over the house and spare this family. And so, We get the first observance of the Jewish festival of Passover, with detailed instructions about everything from what to wear while eating to how to cook the lamb and the bread. I'm intrigued by this reading of these Passover instructions because I can't help but wonder, why would the Hebrew people go to all this trouble? Why are they even still trying to follow the Lord's commandments? They have already endured 9 plagues that did not win them their freedom. What makes them think this time is going to be any different? 10th time's the charm? God tells the Hebrews, "This is how you shall eat. Your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly." Hurry. Because Pharaoh is about to let you go from Egypt. A promise that Pharaoh has already gone back on and will, before this story is over, go back on again. It's often said that one definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So where do the Hebrew people find the hope or even the naivete to believe that this time it will work? Moses gives these instructions to the Hebrew people, and the text tells us the Israelites went and did just as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. The narrator doesn't tell us about any eye rolling or grumbling. I have to believe there was at least a little bit. Moses had promised them their freedom so many times before, and instead they got frogs and gnats. We, the readers, know that this plague will be the last one, the straw that breaks the camel's back. We know that even when Pharaoh goes back on his promise and sends his troops after the Hebrew slaves that he has liberated, Moses will part the seas and they will make it across safely to the other side, while Pharaoh's army gets stuck in the mud and drowns. But that's the advantage of thousands of years of hindsight. We get the story without living through the plagues. The Israelites don't know that their salvation is at hand. They've prayed before and they've heard salvation is coming before. But for them, it's just another day, another plague. They hear Moses' instructions, and for whatever reason, they follow them. Maybe they believe that deliverance is coming this time. Maybe they just act as if they do. Maybe they've just decided, why not? What can it hurt? Fake it till you make it. They prepare for a salvation that they know they may never get to see. And because the Hebrew people prepare themselves, they do taste freedom when it finally comes. Freedom comes. Salvation comes eventually. But it takes a long time, and many lives, Hebrew, Egyptian, and animal alike, are lost in the process. That's the tension of our faith, isn't it? The paradox. God answers our prayers for deliverance, but only after long periods of unanswered prayers. Most of the time in our dialogue with God, we find ourselves waiting. If we're honest with ourselves, most of our relationship with God is spent crying out to God and waiting to hear what God might say. Maybe that's why we tell our stories. So that while we are waiting, we remember who we are and who it is that we are waiting upon. So that as our prayers go unanswered time and time again, we remember the ways in the past that God has answered our prayers. God tells the Hebrew people to pass this story of the first Passover on to their children. God commands that every year Israel is to reenact this final meal before freedom. This last gesture of active, embodied hope before their deliverance finally comes. The night when, after 9 plagues failed to win their freedom, the Israelites still ate with their loins girded, their sandals on, staff in hand, ready for a salvation that against all odds they believed would come. We too are waiting, aren't we? Waiting to see what happens with this pandemic, with our nation's upcoming election, with national unrest, and with those private struggles and tragedies in our own lives. So I wonder, what stories are we telling ourselves about who we are as a nation and as a people, about who we are as individuals and as a church, about who and what it is that we worship, the God to whom we pledge ultimate allegiance in our lives. Passover teaches us that the stories we tell shape what we will do and who we will become. As the late writer Rachel Held Evans says it, storytelling has always been and always will be one of humanity's greatest tools for survival. So let's put on our sandals. Let's gird up our loins. Let us, like the Hebrew people in Egypt, get to work while we wait. Embody our hope in our lives and our actions. Let's tell the stories of who we are and who we hope to be. Let's share holy meals in our own homes, confident of that day in the future when we can eat together again. Let's wait and work with joy, determination, and hope. For indeed, our faith is a story of salvation often delayed, but it is also the story of a God who always delivers. Thanks be to God. Amen.